Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 221. Asmodeus. Part 1. A sleeper car was rolling around. The citizens of the council, including Aileen, were busy moving me somewhere. I could feel the fragments of my stories constantly entering, like patient in critical condition. Putting aside the urgent situation, my mind was gradually becoming calm. I decided to sort out the situation. Currently, you have the inheritance rights to the Jillabat industrial complex. How did I become a revolutionary and gain the inheritance rights of the Jillabat industrial complex? The answer was simple. Kim Dokja killed the ruler of the Jillabat industrial complex. At first glance, it seemed like a circular argument, but this wasn't the case. It was because Kim Dokja wasn't my body. In other words, it was easy for someone to impersonate me, build up a reputation there, and finally kill the ruler. The star stream is correcting the scenario error. A new story related to you is scheduled. What crazy person could do such a thing? There obviously couldn't be two such crazy guys. Kim Dokja thought. Yu Joonghyuk is now in the Jillabat industrial complex. At first, I purely felt gratitude. Yu Joonghyuk was a decent person. That jerk hit the industrial complex to save me. I felt thrilled for a while without thinking much. Then once I thought about it, I couldn't believe it. That Yu Joonghyuk entered the Jillabat industrial complex to save me? In the first place, it was strange that Yu Joonghyuk knew about my crisis. How could a guy who wasn't a constellation or have access to a channel know about my crisis? Thus, Yu Joonghyuk was likely to do the opposite of coming to my rescue. He noticed that I impersonated him and came to the demon world to pick me up. In the meantime, something went wrong and he headed to the Jillabat industrial complex first, where he went through an unnecessary dispute and overturned the industrial complex. I couldn't even fathom how much rage it felt to do that. You're being healed. Don't shake your body. Aileen, who was working on my story in the treatment room, pushed up her glasses and scolded me. I replied in a dispirited manner. I'm sorry, it is instinct. How is my state? Don't talk nonsense in your current physical condition. Aileen sighed, but her expression didn't look bad. I can only see it as a miracle. You are slowly recovering. The damage to your stories is so big it will be hard to move around, but I think you will be fine. Maybe it was because I entered the main scenario again, but my sense of breathing had changed. Those who didn't know what it felt like to be in exile and return to the scenario wouldn't understand. Kim Dokja thought, this is the story. It felt like a cozy and huge world was embracing me. Funnily enough, it felt like I was now living properly. It was frightening to think about who designed these senses. Quack, don't move. Eileen's sharp voice was heard along with the strong pangs. Your current story configuration is incomplete. I had entered the scenario and was in the recovery phase, but things were still serious. It was a miracle that I survived long enough to kill Duke Siswitz. It was a reckless battle. It was uncharacteristic of me, and I didn't know why I acted like that. Some constellations are asking about you. Moreover, I summoned the story weapon so my future stories would become very complicated. I opened the message log that I had been putting off. Many constellations in the channel are greatly impressed by your performance. 3,000 coins have been sponsored. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is nodding at your competence. 4,000 coins have been sponsored. There was some sponsorship. Somehow I wasn't impressed. The 20th main scenario has ended. The main scenario, Demon World Revolution, has been cleared. The excessive main scenario skip is delaying the compensation. The collection of stories due to clearing the main scenario is pending. There were some problems, but the scenario messages came up correctly. Some constellations are wondering about your identity. Some constellations would like to invite you to their nebula. Someone is eyeing your story. The familiar shenanigans had also begun. It was understandable why they were running around like this. The story weapon Pluto. Even the narrative-grade constellations coveted the giant soldier. The giant soldier was a rare weapon that could only be seen in the huge stories of gigantomachia. It was a weapon that could trample on the legendary story, the factory, like it was a toy. There was no way the constellations wouldn't covet such a weapon. By the way, he hadn't come yet. The constellation father of the rich knight is watching you. He came, shit. The constellation father of the rich knight is watching you. Father of the rich knight. Fortunately, he didn't take any action apart from looking at me. It was normal for him to be angry because I used his story weapon. No, Hades looking at me might be a terrible thing in itself. He was the king of the underworld. The exclusive skill Fourth Wall is strongly activated. The fourth wall is laughing. Damn it, I disliked this mean fellow. Of course, I was narrative grade and could touch Hades' toes, but the problem was my current condition. The bandages wrapped around my body represented my present situation. The incarnation body was the phenotype of my status. The phenotype was ruined, so the status of the constellation inevitably shrunk. It was the first time I had been injured like this. It was hard to lift one arm, but the smartphone in my hand was comforting. I was grinning, and Aileen frowned as she bandaged me. I told you not to look at that for too long. My mother always said this. You need to maintain absolute stability. For me, looking at this is absolutely stable. I deliberately didn't explain. It would probably be filtered even if explained. What about the Siswitz Industrial Complex? No, now we should call it the Yu Joonghyuk Industrial Complex. It's fine. The Duke died and the industrial complex was on its way to stability. There was a lot of talk about the removal slaves and the treatment of the nobles who were prisoners, but Aileen was doing well. Aileen looked at me for a moment and asked, in fact, you aren't Yu Joonghyuk? It was a question I had anticipated and I nodded. That's right, I'm not him. However, the owner of this industrial complex is now Yu Joonghyuk. Certainly, it was true. In fact, there was a mention in my messages. The current owner of the industrial complex is Duke Yu Joonghyuk. Duke Yu Joonghyuk. That jerk should be thanking me. I glanced at Aileen and told her, the Duke will soon come. Aileen's expression filled with a strange tension. Yu Joonghyuk is a demon? He isn't a demon, although sometimes he feels like a demon. I was worried about how to explain and finally decided to say, in this round, Yu Joonghyuk is a good guy. Aileen didn't understand what I meant. I shook my head. I have a favor to ask. Can you call Jang Haeyoung and Han Myung-go to me? I have something to say to them. I understand. I had passed one crisis, but it was literally only one. The revolutionary scenario was over, but the following scenarios were incomparably larger in scale. Some demon kings are interested in your actions. If I wasn't cautious, I would be eaten. Thus, from now on, I had to prepare step by step. As soon as Aileen disappeared, I opened the file on the panel screen without hesitation. -3 Ways to Survive in a Ruined World, First Revision, .txt. It was the long-awaited ways of survival. My heart was already beating quickly. What did first revision mean? In addition, why did the writer give this to me? However, the file didn't immediately appear. It might be due to the smart made by Aileen. The performance was enough to make me miss my old smartphone. The file barely opened after a considerable amount of time passed. The phone isn't slow. It is the file that is too big. Indeed, this was around the time it would take to load on an unoptimized PC. I felt a bit sick at the huge amount of text. Damn, how did I read this? In order to see where the story was modified, I had to read it again from the beginning and compare it to my memories. I started reading the first 10 pages. There didn't seem to be much change. It started with the subway and Yu Joonghyuk's actions. This was a revision, so why was this jerk still like this? Then a sentence that didn't exist in the original Ways of Survival appeared for the first time. Yu Joonghyuk thought, if it was him, I wouldn't have thought of this. I stopped as I felt cold. If he had been here, I would have judged things a bit differently. I subconsciously scrolled back to the first page. The performance of the smartphone caused the text to be mixed up, but I couldn't afford to worry about it. An eerie feeling filled my heart. I was missing something. The first scene was the same? No. It was a completely different beginning. I scrolled to the first page of the first chapter of Ways of Survival and stared with a stunned expression. It isn't the third regression. The first revision of 3 ways to survive in a ruined world. I read the first sentence of the novel again. Thus, Yu Joonghyuk's fourth life began. The first revision started from Yu Joonghyuk's fourth regression. Yu Joonghyuk had a thought. In this round, that guy doesn't exist. Chapter 222. Asmodeus. Part 2. In this round, that guy doesn't exist. As soon as I read this sentence, an electric current flowed from my head to my toes. Perhaps, no, it couldn't be. Of course not. There were many people who could be called that guy by Yu Joonghyuk. In the previous regressions, there were a few guys that Yu Joonghyuk met. Then I remembered Yu Joonghyuk's thoughts that often appeared and my mind became complicated. Yu Joonghyuk had a thought. Don't think it will improve by repeating the regressions. There is only my birthday in this life. I don't know if I can do it. Still, I won't give up. Shit, by all appearances, these were my words. I quickly scrolled through the pages towards other scenes. The words, that guy, often appeared. He never wrote the name, Kim Dokja, but it was clearly me. Of course, I couldn't be sure 100% because I didn't remember everything I said. Even so, I couldn't imagine anyone else saying these words to Yu Joonghyuk. If someone else had spoken such cheeky things, Yu Joonghyuk would have cut off their heads. I'm having a psychotic break. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is wondering about your words. I ignored the message from the great sage, the equal of heaven, and slowly took a deep breath. I needed to organize my thoughts. There was still time. Unexpectedly, the fourth wall helped me. Kim Dokja thought, in short, this is the current situation. Yes, tell me. 1. The first revision of Ways of Survival had arrived. 2. The revision started from Yu Joonghyuk's fourth regression. 3. A person presumed to be Kim Dokja appeared in the recollections of the fourth regression, Yu Joonghyuk. It was a very straightforward organization. These 3 facts were proof of only one thing. Yu Joonghyuk failed the third regression. I couldn't think of anything else, no matter how I looked at it. If Yu Joonghyuk and I reached the end of this world, he wouldn't have moved on to the fourth regression. This was the most logical reasoning. The third round that I intervened in was a failure. The time after the failure was newly recorded in the revision of Ways of Survival. I wondered how it was possible, but this was a world where many impossible things had already happened. I let out a brief sigh and searched Ways of Survival again. One question was resolved, but many more opened. Through the fourth wall, I tried to sort out the questions that came up one by one. Why don't I exist in the fourth round of Yu Joonghyuk? No matter how I thought about it, I couldn't get an answer. It might be because I wasn't a character, or it might be due to other problems. In any case, it was obvious that I no longer existed from the fourth regression onwards. There was a second problem I had to focus on. If the first revision is a depiction of future events, could there be a second revision depending on my actions? Nothing was certain. Maybe this first revision couldn't be ruled out as a definite future. Still, I was certain that it wasn't a high probability. If this was a definite future, the author wouldn't have sent it to me. I didn't know why, but the author was giving me an opportunity through this revision. If I kept going along this path, the third regression would end in failure. Then in the fourth regression, Yu Joonghyuk would repeat things alone. The author was sending a warning. Of course, the author might have a terrible stench, but, in any case, I decided not to consider it because there was no answer. The first step is to read all of this again, my head will hurt. I pressed a hand against my temple and kept reading Ways of Survival. Some places were the same while some were changed. Anyway, I felt numerous emotions as I read the story. That jerk, Yu Joonghyuk, he is still like this, despite everything I told him. I was thinking about it. Eh? Look at this. Hasn't it changed a bit? I thought about it. Also, yes, this part was very interesting. I liked this part. Fuck, there is too much explanation. No, the sentences seem a bit better? Did the author grow? Stuck in these thoughts, I returned to the reader's identity and fell into ways of survival again. He was still a sunfish, but the interesting thing was that my intervention reduced Yu Joonghyuk's minor mistakes. The most notable part was that he caught the ichthyosaur like me at the beginning of the 4th round. Yu Joonghyuk thought, that guy got a hidden scenario here. He also didn't die from the theater dungeon in the 8th and 11th regressions. I lived because of that guy. Well, I still would have somehow survived. I was almost moved to tears when I read this part. If I had a place to show off, then I would have boasted. Everyone, take a look. That damn sunfish has grown. Of course, I was the only reader of Ways of Survival, so there was nowhere to boast. My quick scrolling suddenly stopped as I thought of a question. Wait a minute, this guy was doing better than I thought. Then what happened next? Yu Joonghyuk, who was affected by me, would he reach the proper ending of this world? What are you doing? I heard from Aileen that you are dying. Kim. Joonghyuk SSI. Is your body okay? The door opened and Jang Haeung and Han Myung-go entered. I had forgotten that I told Aileen to call the two of them. Is that a smartphone? Jang Haeung saw the device I was holding and ran over in a flash. I lightly changed the hand holding the phone and answered, no, go away. Can you receive messages? A call? The internet? Do you have a jaw? Jang Haeung made a sullen expression at my cold reply. Then why did you call us here? Are you still keeping in contact with the constellations I told you about? Them? Jang Haeung shrugged and replied, they aren't interested. Really? The future scenarios would be difficult to overcome with my strength alone. Until now, the opponents were disasters that descended through the scenarios or individual constellations. Those who would disturb me in the future were bigger. For example, those damn Vedas guys who fucked me over with fate. If I wanted to fight them, I needed to know the trends of the constellations and transcendence with similar ideas. Everybody seems busy doing their own thing. Most of them didn't even answer. It was still too early. It was much later in the story that Jang Haeung became the king of transcendence. Therefore, the constellations who were by Jang Haeung's side in the original novel might be different at this point in time. Moreover, the original had already changed. I sighed and said, it's fine. You can go out. What? You were the one who called me. Jang Haeung grumbled and left the room, leaving only Han Myung-go behind. Han Myung-go opened his mouth first. You know, it is strange. I knew you from the days in the company, but... That's enough. Do you know why I called you? Ahem. Han Myung-go seemed to know the reason. In fact, I can't contact him. Isn't your connection to the household restored? It recovered. However, there is no response from the Demon King. Not long ago, I broke Han Myung-go's connection to Demon King Asmodeus using the 4-een demonic beheading sword. Still, it was only a temporary thing. I thought it was time for contact with Asmodeus to be re-established. Yet there wasn't any contact from him yet. Isn't there anything he wants to ask? Perhaps he no longer believes me. Or, at this moment, Han Myung-go's expression changed. I am connected. I was nervous for a moment. Demon King Asmodeus. A powerful presence among the 72 Demon Kings would now speak to me through Han Myung-go's eyes and mouth. By the way, Han Myung-go's expression was a bit strange. Huh? What is it? Something is wrong. What happened? He came directly. Huh? The Demon King came directly. One side of my heart cooled. The Demon King came directly. The meaning of these words was simple. Demon King Asmodeus directly visited the scenario area with his own body. I asked while constantly receiving the channel messages from Bayou. Is he near here? I think he has already found you. Already found me? No matter how much I raised my senses, I couldn't feel the Demon King at all. If the Demon King really came near here, not only would the constellations of the channel be turned upside down, the enormous pressure should have caused a group of incarnations to bleed to death. By the way. Wait, don't tell me. If I thought about it, I did everything under the name of Yu Joonghyuk. The beings who didn't enter the channel or know exactly what was going on were likely to guess my position through the star stream. According to the star stream, my current position was... Shit. Why all of a sudden? Head Director Han, do you know the way to the Jilabat Industrial Complex? Yu Joonghyuk was in danger. Kim Dokja. Hooray Kim Dokja. The independence of the industrial complex. Yu Joonghyuk listened to the shouts coming from all over the Jilabat Industrial Complex and had a complicated expression. I didn't mean to do this. Yu Joonghyuk frowned as he stared at Duke Jilabat, who died in his hands. Sparks were flying around Yu Joonghyuk's body due to the excessive opening of his transcendent power. He didn't need to open it at this point. It was too early to open the first stage of transcendence. However, it was impossible to handle his work in the demon world in a short amount of time without opening the power. It was a power that was deliberately hidden from the constellations, but he was caught by one of them. Yu Joonghyuk watched the Uriel doll sitting on his shoulder. I don't think this person has any ideas. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is satisfied with your achievement. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is touched by your comradeship. The Duke gives a lot of coins. Thus I killed him. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is laughing. Yu Joonghyuk didn't answer and looked at the panel screen in the Duke's office. There were low-quality scenes that seemed to be taped by the Weni people. Yu Joonghyuk. I am Yu Joonghyuk. It was an absurd scene. Hundreds of people shouted that they were Yu Joonghyuk. The most disturbing thing was the huge guy yelling it in the center. Yu Joonghyuk. Yu Joonghyuk. Wha? Yu Joonghyuk watched the scene with a frown before turning his head. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is turning red. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is urging you to go and meet Kim Dokja. Yu Joonghyuk shook his head. I've confirmed that he is alive. Cancel your personal scenario and send me back to the original world. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is surprised. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire says the personal scenario hasn't ended yet. The contents of the personal scenario of the constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is to meet Kim Dokja. Do you really think I will accept that personal scenario? The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is greatly shocked. The shoulders of the Uriel doll trembled and she had an expression that she wouldn't make even if Eden was destroyed. Yu Joonghyuk watched for a while before sighing. Is this okay? The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is raising her head with a sullen expression. I have become a duke of the demon world with this. But you are an archangel. I'm asking if there is a problem with this. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is greatly embarrassed. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire says she hasn't thought about it. Shit. Yu Joonghyuk spoke all types of curses as he wondered how he could act in the future with the Archangel. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is warning you. A tremendous darkness started gathering around him. Yu Joonghyuk instinctively drew the heaven-shaking sword at the formidable aura. However, the opponent was someone he couldn't win against, just be drawing a sword. A dark abyss gathered into an essence. The deepest darkness of the demon world was manifested before his eyes. Yu Joonghyuk knew this darkness very well. Run away. I can't protect your symbolic body. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire says it isn't possible. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire. Yu Joonghyuk's shoulders were shaking slightly. The Uriel doll had never seen such a side before and grabbed Yu Joonghyuk's shoulder with a panicked expression. It wasn't easy to calm down the trembling. As if he didn't want to acknowledge the fear, Yu Joonghyuk opened his mouth with a nasty expression. I was once killed by this guy. The next moment, the body of darkness revealed itself with a tremendous aura that burst the bodies of the incarnations in the area. You are in a place like this, Demon King of Salvation. Chapter 223. Asmodeus. Part 3. I told her to take me to the Jilabat Industrial Complex, and Aileen replied. No matter how fast you are, it will take at least 2 days to reach the Jilabat Industrial Complex. Perhaps if there is help from a transcendental existence. The delegation must be a transportation vehicle. Is it unreasonable? I said 2 days, assuming that you use it. 2 days, even 2 hours was too long for me. No matter how I got there, I had to arrive within an hour, or I would find Yu Joonghyuk's torn body. I was thinking hard, the help of a transcendent presence. The first one to come to mind was Hermes. If I had this constellation's help, I could cover a distance that took 2 days within a few minutes. The problem was that he belonged to Olympus. Going to hell is going to hell. I can't borrow his hands. Huh? I waved my hand at the startled Aileen. I'm just talking to myself. Of course, I was purposely talking to myself. The reason? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is wondering what is going on. The constellation who likes to change sex is wondering what happened. Some constellations are curious about the information you have hidden. It was in order to induce this response. I deliberately ignored their messages and spoke towards Aileen. Is there another way? A warp portal or something like that. This is the 73rd demon realm. It is also the outskirts of the 73rd demon world. We don't have such advanced transportation devices. I see. What the hell is going on? Someone is about to die. Who? It is the master of this industrial complex. As expected, my message log exploded. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is asking what you mean. The constellation who likes to change sex is listening to your story. The explosion was still small, but it couldn't be helped since there weren't many constellations in the channel. By the way, when did the person who liked to change sex come here? Prisoner of the Golden Headband. Can you help me? I spoke directly to the constellation, and the people in the treatment room were astonished. I decided to be more brazen. If you don't mind, I'd like to borrow your Nimbus cloud. It was one of the great sage, the equal of heaven's star relics, the Nimbus cloud. If I could borrow it, I could reach the Jilabat Industrial Complex in the shortest time. The problem was whether the great sage, the equal of heaven, would lend me his star relic. He had already wasted probability once, because of me. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is asking why you need the Nimbus cloud. I struggled for a moment, before opening my mouth. I had to speak well here. I pretended to be Yu Joonghyuk. Then Yu Joonghyuk impersonated me. It caused a scenario error and there is a problem. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is annoyed. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband hates complicated things. I decided to summarize the situation according to the great sage, the equal of heaven's patience. Due to this, Yu Joonghyuk is going to die. I wanted to know if he would help, but the response from the great sage, the equal of heaven, was unexpected. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is pulling out a handful of his hair from the stress. Wait a minute. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is leaving to find a hair comb. Excuse me? There was no response from the great sage, the equal of heaven, who disappeared. A constellation who likes to change sex is enjoying the situation. 100 coins have been sponsored. I was looking up at the air when Aileen asked me, I don't know who he is, but the new owner of this industrial complex is in a crisis? That's right. Why? He's going to meet a demon king. A demon king isn't necessarily an evil existence. If you are lucky, you can survive. I guess, but the problem was the Demon King was Asmodeus. In the novel, Asmodeus was one of the greatest adversaries whenever Yu Joonghyuk regressed. Yu Joonghyuk had already died against Asmodeus in the past. Could Yu Joonghyuk be safe from him? No good images popped up no matter how hard I thought. Han Myung-go looked at me nervously and opened his mouth. Now what are you going to do? It was a big problem. Even if I managed to get there in time, there was no guarantee I could overcome Asmodeus by joining forces with Yu Joonghyuk. However, I won't know without trying. I didn't know you were so passionate. In the company, you never. If I don't work hard, I will die. It is different from not becoming a full-time employee if I didn't work hard. Ahem. The situation was bad, but I decided to think as positively as possible. There was something I didn't know. Perhaps things would turn out well even if I didn't go there. A miracle could happen that caused Yu Joonghyuk to experience a great awakening, or Asmodeus might suddenly become a good guy. Damn, that was impossible. I opened the revised ways of survival on my smartphone again. I couldn't come up with something, so I had to read this to find the answer. What is this all of a sudden? Shoo, be quiet. This is what I do best. I quickly scrolled through the contents of Ways of Survival. Then one sentence in the 12th regression caught my eyes. Yu Joonghyuk thought there were many reasons for his failure in the third round. This was the most important reason. My heart suddenly sank. No, hurry up and think about it. The moment I read the next sentence, my mind became blank and I almost went crazy. At that time, we shouldn't have pretended to support the Demon King Asmodeus. There was a little girl with dark eyes. She had a small body and appeared to be around 8 or 9 years old. The chubby cheeks and vivid expressions were reminiscent of a child actor. There wasn't any apparent threat on the surface. His taste is the same. However, Yu Joonghyuk knew very well that the gigantic presence in that body wasn't the main character of a children's drama. This girl was the peak of the 72 existences scattered across the demon realm and the owner of the 32nd demon realm, someone even narrative-grade constellations were reluctant to face. Demon King of Rage and Lust, Asmodeus. Asmodeus smiled with the girl's face. Oh, there is no need to be so tense. I just came to talk. The utterance of his true voice brought pain to the incarnations in the area. All incarnations in the industrial complex were probably bleeding. In front of this fearsome pressure, Yu Joonghyuk held his breath and raised all his magic power. The feeling of pressure wrapped around his skin gradually decreased. This presence was so strong that even the transcendent Yu Joonghyuk found it hard to bear. As expected, the status of a demon king itself was different. Whether or not he knew Yu Joonghyuk's heart, Asmodeus approached Dean with gentle footsteps. Interesting. The last time we met was when I saw you through my subordinate's eyes at the Siswitz industrial complex. The steps were obviously light, but in Yu Joonghyuk's eyes, they were the heaviest things in the world. The grip on the heaven-shaking sword became stronger and the veins of his neck bulged. You moved to Jilabat and defeated the Duke in such a short time. Your skills are great, Demon King of Salvation. Demon King of Salvation. It was obvious who this was referring to. Damn, Kim Dokja. Everything happened in the wrong place. In a short time, Yu Joonghyuk had dozens of thoughts. This guy is in an incomplete incarnation body. Can I win? No, it is impossible. It might be an incarnation body, but this is the demon world. Then can I run away? It is too unreasonable. There is no way to get rid of the Demon King, who has the mind and heart of an incarnation. Originally, the Demon Kings couldn't exist in this scenario. Based on the visible sparks, a huge amount of probability was being consumed in real time. Yu Joonghyuk couldn't escape from somehow who showed up with this determination. There is only one way that will possibly work. Buy time to waste his probability. He might be a demon king, but he couldn't take over the body of an incarnation in the scenario for long. He would be forced to return as long as Yu Joonghyuk could buy some time. The problem was that it shouldn't be a fight. In the end, Yu Joonghyuk had to bend his pride a bit. Yes, I am the Demon King of Salvation. Who are you? It is a bit strange. Were you originally this handsome? The face I saw last time. You came here because you have something to say. Then tell me. Hoo, yes. But before we talk, there is something that is bothering me. What? Asmodeus's small fingers snapped. Formidable sparks appeared and a little doll with half of one arm torn appeared in the air. As expected, Yu Joonghyuk bit his lips. He was dealing with a demon king. It was a mistake to think that the recluse's cloak wouldn't be noticed. Why is the symbolic body of an archangel here? I don't know. Is that so? Is this true? Intense sparks flashed and Uriel made a pained expression. I can tell who you are based on this symbolic body. The constellation demon-like judge of fire is looking at Asmodeus. Archangel Uriel. Is your brother Raphael well? I want you to tell him that I haven't forgotten the debt. The constellation demon-like judge of fire is roaring with anger. Of course, you can only tell him if you return safely. Yu Joonghyuk's expression darkened. This was the demon world. No matter how strong Uriel was, she couldn't expose the Demon King's incarnation body with a symbolic body. Yu Joonghyuk didn't hesitate to raise his energy. Stop. It would be difficult if he lost Uriel's symbolic body here. He would become lost from the scenario if he lost Uriel here. Asmodeus looked impressed by the pressure of the boiling magic power coming from Yu Joonghyuk. HRMM? This energy, it is tough. But the next moment, Asmodeus was in front of Yu Joonghyuk. A mere mortal is imitating a star. The small arm stretched out and grabbed Yu Joonghyuk's jaw. Quack. Indeed, you aren't the Demon King of Salvation. Isn't that right? Yu Joonghyuk hurriedly swung the heaven-shaking sword. Surprisingly, it was easily caught by Asmodeus' hand. If I'd known you could make such a pretty face, I wouldn't have let you go in the beginning. Then the heaven-shaking sword was broken in half. You are afraid of me. Cute child. Quook. If you resist so much, I will lose the desire to talk to you. Dark shadows flocked behind Asmodeus. The darkness gathered in the air and formed a monster with huge horns. I want to trample on you. Blood started to flow from Yu Joonghyuk's nose. The mighty story was weighing down on his transcendence. In front of the vast presence, Yu Joonghyuk quietly prepared to open Transcendence Stage 1. There were no odds, but Yu Joonghyuk didn't give up. If he could just create a gap for one moment, he might have enough time to return to the Earth scenario. As Yu Joonghyuk was thinking this, he allowed one attack and felt the shock of his entire body being broken. His left arm and right leg were broken and even the magic power in his stomach was lost. By the time he came to his senses, he was crumpled on the ground. Asmodeus raised this Yu Joonghyuk and touched Yu Joonghyuk's forehead softly. I can't believe it. A mere human has such sublime despair. Dog, BAS, Tard. Persephone said that Kim Dokja must be the best story. Hoo. Asmodeus licked his lips. Yu Joonghyuk stared at Asmodeus before closing his eyes. I'm sorry, Kim Dokja. There was no other way. He was forced to look towards the next regression. He closed his eyes and Yu Joonghyuk's clock prepared to go back. The second hand, the minute hand, the hour hand. The moment that the giant hands were going to move in the opposite direction. That's why you should have thought about me earlier. All of a sudden, Yu Joonghyuk's clock stopped. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint Stage 3 has been activated. Huge sparks appeared around Yu Joonghyuk and the startled Asmodeus moved back. Something blinked inside Yu Joonghyuk's eyes while something else woke up. Of course, it was me. You. The constellation Demon King of Salvation is looking at the Demon King of Rage and Lust. I stared at Asmodeus with bright eyes. Then I said, don't touch my incarnation, Asmodeus.